We're only 1,000 subscribers away from unlocking a secret reward. Be the reason it happens faster. The courtroom was silent. Every eye was on me. My name is Captain Sarah Parker. I have served my country for 12 years. I have led soldiers through fire, through fear, through nights that most people cannot even imagine. And on that day, I sat in a small, cold courtroom, wearing my dress uniform, with my Navy Cross pinned proudly on my chest. That medal was not just metal and ribbon. It was blood, sacrifice, and a promise I made to men who never came home. And then the judge looked at me and said, "Ma'am, please remove your medal. This is a courtroom, not a parade." My husband, sitting across the room, smirked. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I simply unpinned it, set it down in front of me, and said nothing. But what happened next would leave that entire courtroom in stunned silence, and it would change my husband's smug little smile into something he never expected. This is the story of how one moment of humiliation became the beginning of the most powerful reckoning of my life. Let me take you back 3 years, before any of this happened. I met David at a military charity dinner. He was charming, confident, and said all the right things. He told me he admired strong women. He told me my career made him proud. I believed him because I wanted to. We married quickly. Too quickly looking back. At first, things felt normal. But slowly, I noticed the way his pride would flicker whenever I got recognized. When I received a promotion, he barely said congratulations. When a reporter interviewed me about my service, he left the room. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself he was just a private person. I was wrong. The truth was, David could not stand living in my shadow. He wanted a wife who made him look good, not a wife whose achievements outshined his own. And when I was awarded the Navy Cross for actions I took to save my unit during a dangerous mission overseas, something in him broke. He never said it directly, but I could feel it. The cold silence at dinner. The sarcastic comments about my hero complex. The way he introduced me to his colleagues as my wife, never as Captain Parker. I told myself marriage takes work. I told myself I could fix this. But some things cannot be fixed. Some things can only be exposed. The cracks became canyons the year I was sent overseas for an extended deployment. While I was gone protecting people I had never met, David was building a different life, one I knew nothing about. When I came home, something felt different. He was distant, secretive. He would take calls in another room. He stopped wearing his wedding ring for work, he said. I told myself I was imagining things. Soldiers are trained to notice threats on a battlefield, but sometimes we miss them at home. Then one evening, I found a message on his phone. It was from a woman named Melissa. The messages were not friendly. They were intimate. They spoke of a future together, a future that did not include me. My hands were shaking, but my voice stayed calm when I confronted him. He did not deny it. He did not even look sorry. "You're never here, Sarah," he said. "You care more about your medals than about us." That sentence cut deeper than any wound I had ever taken in service. Because it was not just an insult. It was the truth of how he had always seen me. Not as his partner, not as his equal, but as competition. I asked for a divorce that night. I did not know then that this was only the beginning of the battle. David did not go quietly. Instead of accepting responsibility, he turned the story around. He hired an aggressive lawyer and filed for full custody of our 8-year-old daughter, Emily. His claim was shocking, that my military career made me an unfit, absent mother. That my deployments were reckless abandonment. That a child needed stability, and he could provide it, while I could not. It was a lie built on selective truth. Yes, I had been deployed. Yes, my job demanded sacrifice. But I had never once abandoned my daughter. I called her every night I could. I wrote her letters when I couldn't call. I flew home the moment my leave was approved just to tuck her into bed. But courtrooms do not always see truth. Sometimes they see performance. And David performed beautifully. He painted himself as the devoted, present father. He brought character witnesses. He brought tears, right on cue. I sat there, watching the man who betrayed our marriage try to steal my daughter using my own service as a weapon against me. That was the moment I realized this was not a divorce anymore. This was a war. And I do not lose wars. The court hearing was set for a Tuesday morning. I arrived in my dress uniform, medals included, because I wanted the judge to see exactly who was asking for custody of Emily, not just a name on paper, but a woman who had dedicated her life to protecting others, including her own child. But the judge, a stern older man named Judge Whitfield, looked at me the moment I walked in and said the words that would echo through the entire case. "Ma'am, please remove your medal. This is a courtroom, not a parade." I heard a few muffled laughs from David's side of the room. I saw David smirk, leaning back in his chair like he had already won. I did not defend myself. I did not explain what that medal meant. I simply reached up, unpinned my Navy cross, and placed it gently on the table in front of me. But inside, something shifted. A cold, clear determination replaced the sting of humiliation. Because they had no idea what that medal represented. They had no idea what I had survived to earn it. And they were about to find out exactly who they were dealing with. The hearing continued. David's lawyer painted his usual picture. The poor, devoted father left to raise a child while his wife chased medals overseas. Then it was my turn to speak. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I simply told the truth. I described every night I called Emily from a war zone, using satellite phones with static so bad I had to repeat, "I love you" 3 times just so she could hear it. I described the letters I had saved, every single one I wrote to her, dated, time-stamped, filled with promises to come home. Then I turned to the judge and said something that changed the entire tone of the room. "Your Honor, you asked me to remove my medal because this is not a parade. You're right. It's not. It's a courtroom where the truth matters. And the truth is, I earned that medal not because I sought glory, but because I ran toward danger to protect the people I served with, the same instinct that makes me fight for my daughter today." The room went quiet. Then I presented something David did not expect: sworn statements from my commanding officers, time-stamped call logs proving my consistent contact with Emily during every deployment, and, most importantly, text messages from David himself, sent to Melissa, discussing plans to get rid of the kid's inconvenient mother so they could start fresh. The judge's expression changed instantly. He was no longer looking at a soldier who needed to be reminded of courtroom decorum. He was looking at a mother who had just exposed the truth. David's face went pale as the messages were read aloud, one by one. His lawyer tried to object, tried to argue the messages were taken out of context. But there is no context that excuses planning to erase a mother from her child's life. The judge, visibly shaken by what he had just heard, ordered a recess. When court resumed, everything had changed. David's custody claim collapsed under the weight of his own words. The very phone he used to betray our marriage became the evidence that ended his case. The judge, the same man who had asked me to remove my medal, now looked at me with something entirely different in his eyes: respect. He addressed the courtroom directly. "Captain Parker, I owe you an apology. I misjudged the meaning of that medal, and more importantly, I misjudged the mother wearing it." He granted me full custody of Emily. David was left with limited, supervised visitation, pending further review of his conduct. The man who once smirked at my humiliation now sat in stunned, humiliated silence, the same silence he had once mocked me for. Outside the courthouse, I picked up my daughter from my sister's car. Emily ran into my arms, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. I did not gloat. I did not celebrate David's downfall. I simply held my daughter close and whispered, "You're safe now." Word of the case spread quietly through the community, not because I sought attention, but because people were moved by the story of a decorated officer who defended her family with the same courage she had shown on the battlefield. Judge Whitfield later sent a formal letter of apology, acknowledging his initial comment had been unfair and that my service and my devotion to my daughter deserved respect, not dismissal. I framed that letter next to my Navy cross, not out of pride, but as a reminder that judgment based on appearance is often wrong, and that true strength does not need to shout to be heard. Looking back now, I understand something important. There will always be people who misjudge you, who see a uniform, a title, or a role and assume they know your worth. There will always be people, even those closest to you, who try to use your strength against you. But the truth has a way of surfacing. Quiet strength, patience, and unwavering honesty are more powerful than any smirk, any lie, or any moment of public humiliation. I did not win that case with anger. I won it with truth, patience, and the same discipline that earned me my medal in the first place. To every parent, every partner, every person who has ever been underestimated, remember this: silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is simply the calm before you win. And when they finally see who you really are, no smirk in the world can protect them from the truth. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because everyone deserves to know real strength is often the quietest kind.